Today's January transfer window Total Soccer Show special is brought to you by Mack Weldon. Mack Weldon, reinventing men's basics.
That's right. Makers of high-quality, highly comfortable men's clothing that is almost certainly more comfortable than what you're wearing right now, unless you're currently wearing Mack Weldon.
I am not today, but I have been known to. And I've also, in this January transfer window, I'm looking for reinforcements. I'm looking to restock. I have been heavily linked with a Mack Weldon Ace hoodie.
The papers are reporting it? Is that what you're telling me?
Papers are reporting it.
I think I've been heavily linked with one of their long sleeve shirts as well. So there we are.
So we will
lots of rumors out there.
We'll be strengthening this winter with our Mack Weldon purchases. Listeners can do the same.
They can. If they buy any item and use the promo code TSS, they can get 20% off that order.
Can you imagine if Premier League teams had a coupon for the January transfer window? Could you buy an Everton midfielder, but then at the last minute enter coupon code TSS and 20% comes off the price?
There'd be so much fine print in there. like offer valid for 1 minute in like at this time when everyone else is distracted. Cannot be used on Dele Alli.
But it can be used on Mack Weldon, men's basics. Go to mackweldon.com, as Taylor said. 20% off with the coupon code TSS. Hello and welcome to Thursday's Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's been linked with many other soccer podcasts this month. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, but don't believe the rumors. Been linked, but no official statements or quotes from me yet.
They all say sources close to the podcaster. Do you feel like he's maybe your wife? Angling for a move?
Or you? Are you writing all these rumors yourself? You trying to drive up my price?
I'm trying to get you out for big money and then use that to get reinforcements. Kind of like Christian Benteke at Crystal Palace.
You're tired of it just being one-on-one. You want to sell me to get a bunch more people in? That makes sense.
Get a round table game.
It's a second reference to us getting more people around this table. I don't know how I feel about that. In as many days,
It's since we had Peyton in for the Wikipedia game, right?
You're right. That's what it was.
So today's show, as promised, we are going to look at transfer rumours. We're going to look at specific transfer rumours later in the show. We're going to do some sort of fantasy transfers even later in the show, like where we would like certain players to go. But first, we're going to talk about how to read a transfer rumour.
Right.
Because it's January.
The time when I feel like even more than the summer, these rumors get a little bit insane because it's mid-season, and so you can kind of build on the hype of any player. So, for example, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a Spurs fan. We were discussing Dele Alli and how the rumors last week were where he's available for 60 million euros. Now all of a sudden the rumors are 80 million, and it's like, oh, I guess he scored 2 goals. That's worth 20 million euros.
Exactly,
so it can get a little bit crazy because it's mid-season.
Why was it euros? Is he heading to Europe somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
More on that later.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep.
Well, as we promised, basically, we would explain to listeners how at least we look at transfer rumours, because we do look at them. You sort of can't help reading them, which is part of why they exist.
Yep.
And how you sort of try to distill and figure out the good from the bad. All right, Taylor, what's the first thing you look at?
I think I look at the headline with a question mark. We've discussed this previously. Do you have the rule written down for what it's called?
It's either called Bettridge's Rule or Bettridge's Law. I think it's Bettridge's Law of headlines.
But the idea is that question mark is meant to be bait. It's luring you in, and the law basically states what? If it ends with a question mark, you can answer with no.
Any question, any headline ending with a question mark can be answered with the word no. Is Lionel Messi on his way to Man City? Question mark.
The answer is no.
The answer is no.
The answer is no, especially because like on his way literally speaking, would imply that he's on a plane somewhere. And the answer is definitely no to that. But I would say, so that's one. I would say another one for me would be you've got to look at the tenuous links within the story. So we talked about this a little bit with the Gideon Zelalem from Arsenal to Dortmund, that story. Yes. And a lot of it was...
Which I'm still not willing to completely dismiss, but
Nor should you, because I do think that there's a little bit of smoke. I'm not necessarily saying there's fire, but a lot of the links in there.
How did the smoke get there?
Hey man, your guess is as good as mine.
Smoke machine is the correct answer.
But it was like he played in Germany at youth level, so he knows Germany, and his father likes Dortmund. Like it becomes these weird links. So whenever it's like he once visited England when he was 12, so he's very familiar with the culture and society in England, and will find himself right at home. It becomes these sort of like, wait, what? Now you're just trying to reinforce something.
That was in a rumor we talked about recently, right?
Oh, almost
I can't remember
certainly.
who it was.
Yeah, that happens all the time. So I think you have to look at the information within and why it's being discussed.
And even if that thing, he visited England or his dad's a Dortmund fan, is not the main basis for the rumor, I feel like if you feel the writer of the story or the story itself trying to pad out the argument, then you know that at the very least the basis is quite weak. Because otherwise that paragraph about his dad supports Dortmund would be about something else. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
If there were stronger things there.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this again a little bit later on. But it's also, you can kind of tell when you get the idea that it's a story that's been written many times, because it will be, the first paragraph is, here's the basic information of the rumor. Second paragraph is, here's why it might be true. And then it's the player who began his career at this club, moved to this club, and it becomes his bio for like 4 paragraphs.
Right.
And then there's like maybe one more about why he might end up there. Like, you can kind of get this idea that it's like the stock text for the player that they use every single time he's linked with a different club.
Okay. One thing I look for is sources. Right? What are the sources? This is basic journalism. What are the sources quoted within the story? If it's the player himself, if it's one of the coaches involved saying, yes, we're after him, or yes, we're selling him, or if it's the player saying, yes, I'm looking to move, if it's Southampton centre-back Font and he's handed in a transfer request, that's pretty solid in basis, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's sources within the club, I still say that's not nothing, but it's at least the people within the club are not willing to go on record, right? And say that this is happening.
Yeah, and you also don't know who that person within the club is, because it could be like the assistant cafeteria manager who heard, I don't know, Cesc Fabregas talk about how he wanted more Spaniards around. And so now it's going to be every player that plays for Spain is linked with Chelsea.
So you can almost go down the list of like what's more trustworthy. But I don't think any of these are like silver bullets where like if there's unnamed sources, it's definitely not true. It may be that sources don't want to talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that fair?
Or it could be an intentional leak from the club because they want to see if there's interest. They want to see how it's met in the press and with their fans. So there is intentional leakage of rumors to see what happens.
That's worth thinking about as well, because you've got to think, why does this rumor exist? Is it because someone is looking for a new contract? Do you remember, like, I'm pretty sure Rooney's people leaked that thing out that he was looking at going to Man City in order to get more money at Manchester United. Like, who gains from this rumor? And I admit this is a lot more hard work than just reading the thing and moving on, but if you really want to interrogate a transfer rumor, these are some of the steps that you can take.
Indeed. A couple more things. I would say the author is very important, because sometimes you'll see sources close to the club and there'll be a big headline and you'll look at who wrote it and it will be the staff or a combined number of authors or whatever. And if there's no one specific, it makes it harder to believe.
That's true. Yeah. So staff is bad news. Right. Staff means no one's willing to put their name on this, which means that it probably doesn't have that much weight to it.
I would say that. And I think one that I point to in particular, obviously, it doesn't take very long for me to mention, I'm a Man United fan. If you go to the Man United subreddit on Reddit, they have like tiers for journalists where they basically assign tier 1, tier 2 all the way down, so that you know,
it's
like,
a great system.
Yeah, like
well done, Man United fans on Reddit.
I think DiMarzio was the one who kept reporting about Pogba and called a couple other ones as well. I think the Darmian transfer as well. And so that he has tier 1 status, that group of journalists in Italy, so that if they start reporting a rumor, you have this idea that, okay, it's tier 1, that means there must be something to it, versus, it's the Telegraph or Metro reporting something. They're tier 5 or whatever it is. Less likely.
Telegraph are tier 5?
I can't remember who are tier 5.
I'm guessing it's not a Telegraph, because a way I stratify things is English broadsheets. Are you familiar with this concept?
Yeah.
Broadsheet, like, say, New York Times size, are of a higher tier than, say, English tabloids. Tabloids are very much more sort of National Enquiry, not quite to that level. But like The Sun, The Mirror, Daily Mail, these are tabloids. These just want the clicks. Daily Star, even more so. They don't have necessarily the same journalistic reputation to protect. I'm sure they would argue otherwise. But The Guardian, Telegraph, The Times, they have more to lose in terms of reputation. Right? I'm looking at one story recently, a Telegraph story linking the headline. We have it on the screen here. Chelsea captain John Terry could be targeted by Bournemouth for January loan.
Right.
First of all, I like the phrasing in the headline. It is not as aggressive and salacious, right? Could be. That's at least they're qualifying it a little bit. But it's also
Terry to Bournemouth ? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The answer is no. Betteridge's law. Right. But at least they're willing to not really go all in on it. Right. But the other important thing is, if you see the byline, it's by Sam Wallace, chief football writer at the Telegraph, and Matt Law, football news correspondent. So that means, to me, Matt Law has brought this story in. Sam Wallace has got involved because it's too big to not sort of get involved, and they're both willing to put their name on it. That, to me, that's important. That gives it weight. That means we haven't just made this up. We're standing behind this story.
I agree with that. It does have a fairly SEO-y title, because you got what? Chelsea, Bournemouth, January, John Terry.
Yep.
It's got all the things that people might be searching for.
Yeah. At least, if people don't know about this, a lot of SEO stuff, some people will be looking for anything with Chelsea. If you're a Chelsea fan, you might have your Google Alerts set up to have every Chelsea story come to your inbox. So yeah, you get Chelsea in the title, make sure, because John Terry might move to Bournemouth, misses out all the Chelsea fans who might be looking for
Yeah,
that.
or even if you're a Bournemouth fan, if you're searching Bournemouth in January just to see what pops up in the January window, this would be one that would. But I think another point that you made about this article is the way it's written can give you an idea of how it's, or like basically how this information came to be.
Yes. Yeah, so essentially if you do a closer reading of this than just thinking, oh, John Terry's going to Bournemouth, if you read down, it's basically, they have sources that say, Bournemouth just lost, I think it's Nathaniel Akey, who was playing for Bournemouth, has been called back to Chelsea. Bournemouth are a little light, and the club is saying to someone at the Telegraph, we are interested in trying to get John Terry on loan to give us some reinforcements. That makes sense. But to the Telegraph's credit, farther down, they say, John Terry may not be interested in this move, right? He's Chelsea born and bred. He's been there his whole life. He wants to be around and be part of the team for what may be their 5th Premier League title.
Right.
So I'm holding this up as a story that does transfer rumours well, because it's not trying to mislead you.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. So I think that's good advice. Another one I have is that the number of newspapers or outlets reporting the story doesn't give it any more credibility in my mind. Because a lot of times it's still people writers going off of the same report. Sometimes they'll be good enough to say, ESPN is reporting, and other times it will just kind of write the story again without mentioning who's saying it. It will just say, this player is expected to move to this club, without saying how they know that information.
And without veering into politics, people are saying is not evidence.
Nope.
People are saying is just you repeating things that you've heard somewhere.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, so you have to pay attention to that information as well.
But so you can't, and you then can't say, well, 10 newspapers have reported this story. It's then on you to look into where the story begins. And with the ZLM to Dortmund one, I think is a good example, right? Because it was repeated by The Guardian recently, which seems to give it more heft.
Right.
But there's no fresh reporting in The Guardian story. There's just ESPN FC are saying. It all goes back to that same thing. So just because there's 2 outlets doesn't double the strength of the rumour. It just doubles the amount of times that it's been repeated.
Or even, I'm not even sure, I think The Guardian does say ESPN, but it might not. And if it doesn't, it still uses the same basic information. He's almost out of a contract. He's looking for a new club. He has connections to Germany. His dad likes Dortmund. So why not? He'll end up there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say, we've spoken to the player, we've spoken to either club. There is something to this.
There is a level below broadsheet, below tabloid, below blog, below website, and that is the website that is unashamedly just looking for clicks.
Right.
And one of the ones I would hold up here is something like Tribal Football. They will essentially, to be fair, they're the more creative people. I think a lot of the people working there have an MFA in creative writing. And what they'll do is they'll find an actual rumour. Here's a good one, right? A recent headline that I found on Tribal Football today, just looking, was Man United and Chelsea go head-to-head for Lazio defender Stefan de Vrij.
Oh, boy, they're both putting in bids, huh?
So they put some drama in there, right? It's Chelsea versus Man United. If you're a fan of either of those teams, that gets you, I want to win that race. I want to get this guy.
Yeah, you have this idea that like Lazio are at one, like the head of the table, Man United, Man City on either side, yelling at each other, like yelling out numbers, throwing back and forth, old school stock market and whatnot.
But all that's really happened here is the people at Tribal Football, with their MFAs in fiction, have read Sport Media Set, I think, that have said, there's someone at Lazio saying, yeah, we're probably expecting bids for Stefan de Vrij. Right, that's it. Don't mention Chelsea, Man United. So then Tribal Football take that information, plug it in with the idea that they've heard Chelsea, Man United might be linked with Stefan de Vrij in the past. Now they've put 2 Premier League teams going head-to-head in this battle to the death for this big Dutch defender. So all those things are like somewhat true, but it's about sites like Tribal Football rearranging various pieces of information and mashing them together in a terrible jigsaw that isn't supposed to go together that way.
And so we've had people in the scouting network then take that information and trace it back, because they'll hear like, the player that I'm scouting is linked with this club. And they'll go back and it ends up being a link to a link to a link to an article where someone says like, oh yeah, and maybe this would be a good replacement, but it's the journalist writing an opinion piece that then becomes, it would be good if Lazio signed him, becomes Lazio interested in him, becomes Lazio definitely going to sign him, and then somehow becomes Man City are going to hijack Lazio's bid for this player. And it's like, wait, what? What happened now? How did this come to be?
It's the danger of context, right? And again, not to get political, but the whole fake news thing where people were like reading things that were on sort of not reputable websites, and then that stuff gets repeated and enters the mainstream consciousness. A similar-ish sort of thing happens with soccer transfer rumors.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, you have to remember these are still, if nothing else, business deals and acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want that news getting out. If you're a company trying to buy another company, you don't want everyone to know, because then a third company might make another offer. So I also think that to some extent, a lot of rumors tend to get blown up, and maybe there is a little bit of smoke there. Maybe there is some truth.
Yeah.
The one that comes to mind, again, being Man United, would be the Cesc Fabregas to Man United one, when he instead went to Chelsea.
Yes.
But it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it does seem like early on, I think it was David Moyes at the time, said, we don't want him. That's not a move that we're going to go for. But because everybody thought it was true, it kept getting built up.
So was there not an attempt to sign Cesc Fabregas?
Maybe there was, but I think what happens is, in the meantime,
the story I have in my head is that they tried and failed.
Yeah, that may well be, and I'm not trying to give the club credit where it doesn't deserve it. My point is that I think a lot of clubs try to conduct these things in secret, and maybe interest gets out, and then it becomes like, oh, Barcelona are definitely looking to sell him. Now he's definitely going, and talks haven't happened, and talks are breaking down. And then the longer the story goes, it's easier for the media to make it, oh, the club is failing in the talks, or, oh, Barcelona's angry.
Yeah.
And then you'll hear the other report that's like, sources say that neither side has spoken to the other about this, and it becomes the newspapers maybe making more of the situation than is actually there.
Speaking of, how about the ones that are just outrageous?
Oh, yeah, those are always great, huh?
There's one today, or is it yesterday? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday today?
Today is Wednesday.
So there was one Tuesday in The Sun that essentially said Kyle Walker and Danny Rose are going to be the subject of a £60 million bid from Manchester United, and also Manchester City are interested.
Yeah, of course.
But when you read the story, it's really interesting in that, unlike the Telegraph story where they deliberately couch what they say because they didn't want to be overblown about John Terry definitely going to Bournemouth.
Right.
This is super confident that a bid's come in, but with nothing to back it up except confident language.
Yeah. All right. And with that, Daryl Grove, I've got a game for you.
Uh-oh.
We're going to play Transfer Rumor Mad Libs. You ready?
No, but okay.
I'm going to need a club from you. Now, I'd advise you not to make it like a joke tiny club. I need a club that you are relatively familiar with.
Okay. Swansea City.
All right.
Will that work?
Swansea. Now I'm going to need a player. Any player you want in the world.
It doesn't matter if it's realistic? Okay. Swansea. Andres Iniesta.
Okay. Iniesta is the player, which means we know that he's a midfielder, right? So we can fill in midfielder. With
what is happening here?
Okay, because now you have to do, could be on the move with, so we now know that it's Swansea, so we've got Welsh country.
I see.
Now we need I need a size, an adjective for size from you.
Humongous.
Okay, humongous. and then Swansea again. Central midfield. Oh, and then I need just a number. Any number from 1 to a million, or 1 to a billion, whatever you want to do.
42.5 million.
42.5. See, you went right to million. There we go. And would that be euros, dollars, or pounds?
Euros.
Okay. Would be enough to tempt, and we are back with Barcelona. Okay, so we've got sources close to Swansea indicate that central midfield Andres Iniesta could be on the move to the Welsh humongous club, Swansea, who are desperate to reinforce their central midfield position. It is believed that a bid of £42.5 million, or euros, would be enough to tempt Barcelona into the sale. Then you have to insert the filler about the player in the club and why this might happen.
Iniesta came through La Masia, etc.
Yep. Yeah. Then you have to briefly discuss the reasons why this wouldn't happen. So it has to be like he's been at Barcelona his whole life. Why he would move to Swansea remains to be seen. But then you dismiss it completely very quickly, and you use tenuous information like,
all right, Swansea are in relegation trouble, and the new American owners are prepared to splash the cash in order to safeguard their Premier League future. And Andres Iniesta, after spending all his time in La Liga, is interested to sample the Premier League.
And having been impressed by the Welsh national team at the Euros this past summer, could be tempted to make a move. That's what you get out of these, basically. That's how you write a transfer rumor.
He's just dreaming of putting through balls for Mo Barrow to run onto.
Who isn't, Daryl? Who isn't? So there we are. There's your transfer rumor Mad Lib.
But with confidence like that, right? So I want to draw us back to this Kyle Walker, Danny Rose one. The way it's written, I don't have the journalist's name, I'm sorry, because it's off screen. Manchester United are ready to make a move for Tottenham defender defensive duo Kyle Walker and Danny Rose as Jose Mourinho continues his squad overhaul at Old Trafford. News of United's interest in a $60 million deal will not go down well at White Hart Lane, where the pair are seen as vital to Maurizio Pochettino's plans for the future. Manchester City are also keen on the duo. There's a little paragraph about that. So all that's there. None of it has anything that we talked about. No sources. It's just linking two players to one club and a big number.
And a big part of this as well that I love is a transfer rumor can be very, very smart in that it identifies, if I said to you right now, who are Manchester United's best outside backs, you could probably take a guess, but you wouldn't be that confident, right?
Yeah, it's maybe Valencia.
And so then you'd be like, well, okay, then yeah, it makes sense why you'd want to get these two guys who are very good.
Manchester United would be a better team with Kyle Walker and Danny Rose at fullback.
And so that's where it comes, or it plays into stereotypes. So this idea that, Chelsea, Roman Abramovich loves spending money, he wants to sign forwards, he wants goals. Fernando Llorente, it makes sense. And even that one maybe has a little bit more to it. But when you get those rumors of big club is trying to buy big player for big money, you kind of start to wonder, is that just the newspaper knowing that it's not that far-fetched of an idea that Chelsea would want a big-name striker or Real Madrid would want a big-name striker?
Or Man United would want maybe the two best fullbacks in the Premier League.
There you go. Yeah, so I think you can blend that in too.
The realistic part of this comes in where if you're Spurs...
Yeah.
There's no way for 60 million you would sell those two, right?
No, for 60? No.
Yeah, you'd have to spend a lot more to replace the quality because they're sort of perfectly into Pochettino's system. You're also giving them to your rivals for a Champions League spot next year, so you're flushing 60 million down the toilet. Flushing future money down the toilet in exchange for 60 million right now.
And I think it also, again, to go with the stereotypes, it also, I would say unfairly, continues the idea that Tottenham aren't a quote-unquote big club.
Yes.
That it's the idea that still Tottenham, that these players would be... It would be impossible for them to turn down a move to Manchester United as though it's Manchester United of 8 years ago and it's Tottenham of 8 years ago as opposed to Tottenham who were ahead of Manchester United in the table and some would say playing more attractive attacking soccer. So, I mean...
Duncan Wright is that's who the byline goes to.
So shame on you, sir. Shame on you. Sponsored by Duncan Wright is what it says.
Well, it's by Duncan Wright, but it's sponsored content.
I see.
What we're saying. Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
So I feel like we've got very worked up about transfers here. Anything else to add?
It's easy to do so. Other than, again... All of that said, you and I are still going to read the rumors. It's just how much faith you put into those rumors is the biggest component, right? Because you never know if it's actually true, and then if you get your hopes up and it's definitely going to happen and you're so pumped up, and then Michael Bradley doesn't end up playing for Bayern Munich, you get a little bit disappointed. So just temper anticipation, temper your excitement.
I'd be into that.
Oh, yeah, I think we both would.
All right, if you have any questions about transfer rumours, please email us or tweet at us, contact@totalsoccershow.com, or we're on Twitter @TotalSoccerShow. And now, as promised, we're going to go through some of our favourite transfer rumours that we hope happen, and we're going to kind of invent some transfer rumours, because why not? That's what they do at Tribal Football.
Right. So the first one I'm going to go with...
Hello to anyone listening from Tribal Football.
Yeah, I feel like they might have switched off by now. The first one I'm going to go with is a move for Memphis, formerly Memphis Depay.
Oh, yeah.
Still of Manchester United, although most people would not know that.
Forgetting.
Yep. He's been linked with Everton very heavily, Fenerbahce, Wolfsburg as well.
Everton makes sense. Isn't Balassi injured right now? So they're looking for a winger?
That sounds right. And then they've also, it seems like we're in the final stages of negotiations for Morgan Schneiderlin as well. Yes. Whether or not that's a rumor, who knows?
I nearly included that on my list here, but I'm so confident in that going through that I think it's almost foregone conclusion.
I think that's fair. And I think the Fenerbahce links are specifically, my guess would be because Dick Advocaat is the head coach of Fenerbahce, so there's the Dutch connection, so maybe people are making that comparison there.
Okay.
I'm going to say that what I would prefer the rumor be, where I'd prefer he go, is PSG. Because I think Memphis Depay, as the Eredivisie has shown, succeeds when he can go at defenses that maybe could be described as porous.
Yeah.
But I think he also...
Or at least not as good as Premier League defenses.
True.
Yeah.
But I like Memphis, and I think he is a good player. I think it's just the situation at Man United.
He's having a rough couple of years, isn't he?
It hasn't worked for him, and I think he needs to change the scenery. But I think that he needs to go to a club that is still like of a high level in terms of name, brand recognition, so that it doesn't feel like such a huge step down to
it's
all of a
sudden...
Yeah, he's at like a Dutch second division team. It's like, ooh, that didn't work. So that's where PSG comes in, because PSG, it seems like, are still trying to retool, get rid of some of the players they don't want, bring in players like Julian Draxler, and maybe that's where Memphis fits in. I think he still has a big enough name. I think coming from Man United would work, so that's where I want to see him go. That's what I want the rumors to be.
Doesn't the Draxler move make it tougher, because they've already got an exciting winger?
Yeah, but they also have players like Hesse, who hasn't played a minute, or hasn't played very much, and seems like he might be on the move this window as well. So there could be opportunities.
I have a PSG one.
What you got?
I love me some Marco Verratti, right? Every time I see Verratti play, I'm like, oh, this is the guy, right? Like defensive contribution, great ball skills, really creative, drives forward. I would love to see him at Chelsea. That's the thing that's been sort of rumoured. Chelsea or Juventus, I've seen both of those rumours. I don't know how much confidence to place in it. I just know that I want it to happen. So basically, with all respect to Ligue 1, I don't watch it that much. I'd love him to be in a league that I can see more of and really see him up against better opposition. Right? So both Serie A, Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, if you went to any of those leagues, I would love to see Verratti have some more, be in a bigger, tougher contest.
I think you've been on the Verratti train for quite a long time.
I have.
So you've earned that rep. You've earned that move.
Another one in a semi-similar situation is Raja Nangolan, the Roma midfielder. I keep seeing highlights on Reddit mostly of Nangolan doing crazy things. Right, it's either like doing multiple Cruyff turns, dribbling past 2 or 3 people, but he's not like a flashy luxury player. Yeah. He's a battler, right? There's another one recently of him doing one slide tackle, then another slide tackle, then winning the ball, and then off he goes. I would love to see him in the Premier League as well. Yeah, again, Chelsea would be fine, Arsenal would be fine.
Well, Daryl, he does have connections because Antonio Conte used to manage in Italy, so therefore they know each other very, very well, and that move seems like it's about to happen. I don't know why Nangolan brings it up, but there is another one.
That's a made-up rumor, by the way. I don't think there's any link. Although Chelsea were linked with Nangolan in the summer.
I think maybe that's why, is because it's kind of a consistent link, in my mind at least, that it also reminds me that there are players who are linked with teams every single window. The one that stands out most in my mind is Wesley Sneijder, again with Man United. I think United have now signed him roughly 12 times. So you're also going to get that too, where players just kind of are perpetually linked with teams. You can kind of disregard those stories too.
What else you got? What else have you seen?
I have seen Gideon Zalalem being on the move. Okay. We talked about that a little bit.
I want to talk about this, yeah.
All right, so those reports saying that he's going to leave Arsenal, he only has, a year and a half or 6 months left?
I've seen both reported, weirdly.
Yeah. So he has a limited amount of time left on his Arsenal contract.
And a limited amount of Arsenal minutes. So as US fans and fans of Zelalem's game, I think mostly we just want to see him go somewhere where he plays some minutes, right?
Yes.
So any move is good move.
Right, but I think the club that he's been linked with is Dortmund, and I don't think that that's the best move. I know it's worked out well for players like Christian Pulisic and Ousmane Dembele, but Gideon Zalalem, it hasn't been starting, hasn't been getting minutes. The Rangers move didn't necessarily work out for him.
Call it a 50% success.
Yeah, extenuating circumstances there, but still, it seems more likely that if he goes to Dortmund, it's going to be with Dortmund's second team, and we'll see what he can do, and if it doesn't work out, we'll sell him on. No big deal, not a big investment.
Yeah.
And I'd rather him go somewhere where there's less pressure right away, and he has a little bit more time to develop.
Where do you think that will be?
I'm going to say it's Schalke. Because, well, go ahead. Did you have thoughts on that already?
Just that it's already a pretty big team.
It is a pretty big team, but they've struggled at the beginning of the season. They're not going to make the Champions League. They're not going to be relegated either, but they're probably going to finish mid-table, nearer to the top of the table, maybe make Europa League. But it means that they're not so pressed for, we are in a title race, we're in a race for the top 3, top 4, whatever it's going to be. So they have maybe a little bit more time to bring in a player who is a bit of an unknown, and they already have Americans there, and Americans who seem to be performing successfully at youth level.
Oh, Haji Wright et al.
Mackenzie Gaines, and there's one more in there, Weston McKennie, I believe, isn't there too?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've got some Americans there.
Mackenzie Gaines is at Wolfsburg.
Thank you.
Weston McKennie, and the rumor is that Nick Tattague will sign when he's 18.
Thank you. We did it eventually, yeah. So you have some Americans there, so there is some familiarity, so maybe you bring him in. Again, there's the tenuous link.
But you'd want him in the first team, right? Not with the U19s like those guys.
Yeah, very, very true, but at least it sort of has the precedent of we've brought in Americans who maybe people didn't know about, and they've performed well for our youth team, so why not bring in a guy from Arsenal and see what he can do with the first team?
I'd say this, Schalke do have a record of giving young players a chance, right? Goretzka is there. I know he got injured for a while, but he's a guy that's in the scouting network. We haven't received any reports recently, but I know Goretzka is a really good player.
Shots fired by Daryl Grove.
I'm just saying. Max Meyer is also there. So they do give young players a chance at Schalke.
There we are.
I would prefer Zelalem maybe took the Martin Odegaard route and went to the Eredivisie.
Yep.
I think that's a better place for him.
Yeah, I think any place is better for him than trying to get minutes with a team where he's probably not going to get minutes.
But he looks like he has the same problem that maybe Emerson Heinemann had, which is that he might get roughed up a bit, which is the only worry about the Heinemann move to Rangers, right? It was the same problem that Zelalem had himself when he went to Rangers. People were concerned about him getting roughed up.
Speaking of Emerson Heinemann, I meant to bring this up with you earlier. I believe you began the Goal Mouth by saying, your episode of the Goal Mouth on Tuesday, by saying the future of the U.S. national team has gone to Scotland.
Yep.
Is that a position you truly advocate?
I think so. Emerson Heinemann's only 20. If you watch him play, he has the sort of skills, ball movement, pass and move that I meant future as well in terms of the way we want to see the team play. He will be central to it if it happens.
So a part of the future of the U.S.
Yeah.
national team. Okay,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the future.
Yeah.
Not capital T-H-E.
That's why it's called a tease, right? It's top of the
Okay,
show.
I
Yeah.
see.
I'm just saying, there's a future where the US midfield is Will Trapp, Gideon Zelalem, and Emerson Hyndman.
And where's Christian Pulisic? Ahead of them?
Out wide.
Okay, cool. I was going to say he might factor in there a little bit, hopefully. What else have you got, Mr. Grove?
All right, so we've already covered Zelalem. Mamadou Sakho, right?
Yeah.
On the outs at Liverpool,
Yeah.
not even close.
Nope.
Had a terrible summer where he thought he would be in the France Euro 2016 squad when they're hosting, and failed a doping test, but then it turns out incorrectly
Failed a doping test with Liverpool, yeah?
was too late to be included back in the Euro 2016 squad, as we understand it. The rumour is that he's been linked with Southampton.
Well, and worth noting also then was sent home from Liverpool's summer training preseason tour because out of fitness or out of mental concerns,
really?
he clashed with Klopp. He was sent home.
All right, so yeah, they're not buddies,
They're
right?
not.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
So the rumours are linking him with Southampton, possibly in some sort of exchange for funds. Swansea City is where I want to see him go. So I've watched more Swansea City than I've ever watched in a season because Bob Bradley was head coach. I think we can agree that the root of a lot of Swansea City problems, and maybe Bob Bradley has some blame for this, I don't think he necessarily has to shoulder much of it, is the performance of the centre-backs.
Yep.
Right? Amat, Mawson, Fernandez, there's one more I'm forgetting, but all four centre-backs that we saw did not perform well. It was the Dutch guy. Yeah. No one's performed well. Swansea need to sign a centre-back this summer. And I think Sakho is perfect because he's been in the Premier League for 3 years. It isn't a guy who's going to come in mid-season and has to figure out how England works or how Wales works in this case. Sakho's a perfect, experienced centre-back signing.
All right,
You could get fairly cheap for his skill set.
Well, while we're on that subject, I'll just run with my next one because you could go with John Terry, but I've gone Branislav Ivanovic too. Swansea City. Yeah, Ivanovic seems to be out of consideration with Conte. He doesn't really fit the back three. It generally tends to be Azpilicueta, David
Faster
Luiz,
people.
and Cahill.
Faster people.
So Ivanovic has been linked with Crystal Palace and with China. And I think Galatasaray. Everyone seems to be linked with Galatasaray this window. But I think for all the reasons you mentioned, that he could be a center back because he has done that with Chelsea. He could be an outside back.
He is a centre back, right?
Yeah, but they need people to fill in that defense to make it a little bit harder. And then you have that combination. Maybe they get both of those players, both of whom are used to the Premier League, have that experience, can come in, play together, solidify the back four.
You know, the big deal is that Paul Clement is the new Swansea coach as well, who was at Chelsea for a long time. He went with Ancelotti to Real Madrid and to Bayern Munich, right? But so he's been at Chelsea, so there may be some connections.
I think more than that. I think basically the last 4 clubs Ancelotti's been with, he's been there. And then who did he just bring in as one of his assistants?
Claude Makelele.
There we
and
are.
I really, for a second, thought, could he just play defensive midfield for Swansea? Because that would fix some problems. Turns out Makelele is 43.
So maybe more Chelsea connections coming through. We shall see. And I think a 43-year-old Claude Makelele could still do a job for Swansea. Just saying. But that's no criticism of Swansea City. That's mostly my love of Claude Makelele. No, I just think he's one of those players who is probably perpetually fit and ready to go.
All right, here's a rumour that I don't want to happen. It's a rumour we tried to start. I mean, with full disclosure, we weren't pretending to we weren't actually starting a rumour. John Brooks to Arsenal is something we were up on, right? I've realised, after seeing all these Americans on the move recently, and realising that we were actually in a bit of trouble. Like, Green needed some minutes, Hyndman needed some minutes. There were some people who needed to be moved around. I don't want to get John Brooks in a bad situation. Right. John Brooks currently, when fit, starts for Hertha Berlin. Hertha are third in the Bundesliga. Right. There is no need to move him, I don't think. I know I said differently in the summer because I wanted John Brooks to take a step up.
I think part of that was also we wanted him to go to Arsenal before they signed Mustafi. Now they have Mustafi. It seems like that's going to be Mustafi Koscielny is going to be the ideal centre-back pairing, which means he's coming in to be a backup if he were to come in at all.
Yeah, so I want John Brooks to stay.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of backups, sorry.
Wait, so that's your rumor? Is John Brooks to stay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of backups, Per Mertesacker, I saw a story that he's sort of fourth or maybe fifth choice at Arsenal this season because he spent the first half of the season injured. He is now fit. He's only 32 years old. Swansea City on loan. Per Mertesacker.
Oh boy. Well, we are reinforcing Swansea.
We're sending all the big defenders to Swansea.
I like it. Well, I've got a big one for you, Mr. Grove. You ready for it?
Yeah, always.
It's Dele Alli to Barcelona. Yep. I've seen him linked. I believe I've seen him linked with both clubs. The other one being Real Madrid, of course. Because
so this is a bad move for Dele Alli.
Yeah. It's also a move that's, again, not going to happen. Okay. And I think it's not going to happen for a number of reasons. One, I think it's just kind of the British press like to link a big informed player who's English with the biggest
Either
clubs in the
Barcelona
world.
or Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's that. I do think also that it's Daniel Levy has a reputation as being a not fun person to deal with when it comes to negotiations. So you know that you're not going to get a deal here. You know that you're going to have to pay a lot of money. I don't know if Barcelona necessarily wants to do that. That said, Barcelona not in a great run of form. I think they've won the fewest games like in the league so far in like the last 10 years, I think is about where they are.
The recent 1-1, I think 1-1 tie with Villarreal has put them like not out of the title race, but far behind Real Madrid.
And a fortunate 1-1 draw. I think that was Messi free kick very late in that game.
Yeah, well, they also got denied a goal by that handball. Did you see that? I think it was Bruno just sprawled and put his hand out in the box and didn't get called for it.
Gerard Piqué was none too pleased. But what I think that leaves them with is rumors that Ivan Rakitic could be leaving the club.
That was next on my list.
Andres Iniesta, who's getting older, can't play forever.
Linked with a 42.5 million move to Swansea City.
Yeah, and I think
about 10 minutes ago.
And the players that have been brought in to deputize, like Arda Turan, not necessarily a central player, and Andre Gomes not having the best of times yet. Could still blend in, but for now, not having the best time. So Dele Alli comes in as this creative midfielder. You allow that front three to stay as it is, the MSN front three. You bring in Dele Alli. He's fun, he's exciting, he's young. He's proven that he can learn a system and play within it. I think that rumor makes sense from a tabloid perspective, and maybe a little bit for him, like as an actual move. But I don't think it's ever going to happen.
I don't like it for Dele Alli. I think he's in the perfect spot right now, and he should stick with it.
Again, I think that's born of this idea that Tottenham are a selling club, and that Tottenham are never going to be a top 4 title contender.
Not anymore.
And I think the reality is they very much are. Yep.
So you mentioned that Rakitic rumor. The Rakitic rumor I saw was Rakitic to Manchester City, I believe. I think I saw 42.5 million. That may be where I pulled that, unconsciously pulled that number from. That, and he was left out of a recent. He was left out of that Barcelona Villarreal game, right? Which puts a bit of fire, adds fuel to the fire. That Rakitic may be moving.
And here's where I have to interject to say, unless you were going to mention this, have you mentioned what the tabloids have been reporting about this one?
No.
Okay. My favorite aspect of this is a number of papers, because they're maybe lazy or just didn't feel like doing the research, wrote all about how Pep Guardiola loved working with Ivan Rakitic at Barcelona, how there
was an English pundit on Sky Sports, I don't know who it was, who said, he'll know him well from his time at Barcelona.
Yeah, they did not overlap. Rakitic came in very much after Pep Guardiola had already left the club.
He would have played against him when Rakitic was at Sevilla.
Not
but
the same thing.
You see him twice a year.
Yes. So maybe we can remove that link. Even so, you understand why that... Actually, I guess you don't really understand why that link is there. So can you tell us, why would that be a move that would happen? Why do you think that that's been rumored, Rakitic to Man City?
I don't understand it, because I didn't... Maybe I haven't watched enough Barcelona, but I assumed that Rakitic was doing great at Barcelona. Yeah. Maybe he's been out of form. But to me, he's at least in the top 3 central midfielders they have, right?
I think
he is a superior midfielder to Andre Gomes, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then also, like, do City need another attacking creative midfielder?
Gundogan was injured,
so
they may see him as the guy who can be that sort of central guy to be the what do you call it? Metronome. Maybe set the tempo passing guy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because when we were talking about PSG earlier, the other rumor I've seen is Gregor Krychowiak from PSG to Man City or Arsenal as another defensive midfielder.
That's interesting.
Because you've got some injuries there and some concerns about fitness.
So one move I've got here, which is kind of... I'm taking the word move and playing with it a bit, is if Rakitic leaves, maybe we finally have the long-rumoured, talked about move, Leo Messi to central midfield. Right? Maybe you finally get Leo Messi not playing out on that wing... and he keeps coming central, and I don't think it works as well. Leo Messi plays central midfield for Barcelona alongside Busquets and Iniesta, and once again you have a La Masia-schooled central midfield, and Messi can be like the guy that runs the game instead of just scores the goals.
So then who comes in as that front three then?
That's always the question, right? You've got to find a guy to replace Messi in that front three.
I think there's more questions than just that question.
Okay.
If you move Messi to
let's assume that happens. Right? And I understand this is like fantasy stuff. This is not actually going to happen, probably.
I'm pretty sure Dele Alli is moving to Barcelona. So.
Well, I mean, there's an example. They could sign someone like Dele Alli, who we know his best position is like off behind a striker. Right. But then he could find himself at Barcelona playing on the right side of a front three and being like, oh, this is not what I'm used to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Arsenal fans will hate this. I mean, Alexis Sanchez could return and play on the right side of that front three. That, to me, he's not as good as Messi, but that's still a fearsome front three.
I mean, again, no one except for maybe Cristiano Ronaldo is as good as Lionel Messi.
Yeah, so there's no actual replacement.
He's probably not moving to Barcelona either.
Yeah, no one's... Yeah, I doubt it. No one's replicating Messi's performance on that right wing, but someone could sort of at least be a good match for Suarez and Neymar.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. I've got one final one.
Okay.
That's probably like the least sexy of all of these, even though Branislav Ivanovic is not known for his
less sexy
sexiness.
than Per Mertesacker to Swansea.
That might be one. It's Victor Lindelof, the Benfica, centre back, who's been heavily linked with Manchester United this window.
Yep.
I don't think there is any truth to that rumor. I
really
don't. I think maybe there was some interest at some point. Maybe a scout went and watched him, and it's blown up since then. I do think, however, those rumors might shift, or there might be interest at some point from Manchester City. Because Man City, I think maybe Pep Guardiola is starting to realize that those defenders that he inherited are not quite as capable of executing what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And maybe you bring in a player like Lindelof, who's proven he can perform, who's done well with Benfica, who's done okay with Sweden, though Sweden haven't done too much of late.
Yeah.
But it also
I don't know much about him, to be honest. I haven't really seen him play.
It also looks like you've scalped a player from Manchester United who there was like sudden interest, but now all of a sudden City have swooped in, so it's kind of a PR win. But I do think that maybe Guardiola is realizing that he needs to bring in some reinforcements in the non-attacking sense.
Yeah, I feel like it'll happen in the summer in terms of centre
That seems like a distinct possibility.
Final one I have is a rumour I saw, which is Gylfi Sigurdsson to Everton.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it may
That
be
would
that
be
Gylfi
disastrous for Swansea.
gives up on Swansea, because the Swansea he's at right now is not the Swansea he signed up with,
Yep.
right? If he was into that family club type deal. Every time I saw Swansea play this season, Gylfi Sigurdsson really impressed me. He still has a lot to offer. It didn't work out great at Spurs, but Everton would be a sort of a good level team for him to take a step up, but not so far that he's on the bench.
That move, if it were to happen, or if it doesn't happen, would show you what Swansea's intentions are this season. Because if you sell him now, the idea would be that it's January, you're always going to have to pay a little bit more because it's mid-season. But if Swansea are getting rid of their best attacking player, it means that they are trying to get as much money as they can now because they're preparing to be relegated. Because once you're relegated, you kind of got to get rid of those big-name players who are on big money.
Yeah.
So if they sell him in the January window, it seems like then they are preparing
Unless they reinvest it all.
Maybe, but that seems more so like we're selling him so we can reinvest in cheaper talent to get us back to the Premier League next season.
All right, you got any more for me?
Nope, that's it. I got
All
my
right.
5.
Those are our transfer rumours.
All right.
Some real, some made up.
Yes. We'll see if any of them happen. None as creative as the one that was created on Reddit a few years ago. That was like the season that Zlatan signed for PSG. They created the Zlatan to Monaco rumor that did get picked up a couple times. Which was impressive.
Did you see, I can't remember if Reddit started this or not, but Yurda Selzavan
Yes, I can't remember
signed for Aberdeen.
Yeah,
I can't remember where it came from, but it got reported.
It was like what, Turkish winger Yurda Selzavan?
Yep,
or Selzavan. Yeah,
yep.
And then it took us a while to break it down.
Yep.
That if you remove the Scottish accent, it's your dad sells Avon.
Yep,
right.
And Avon is like a door-to-door sales of perfume.
Yep.
So your dad sells Avon.
It's Daryl's lost it. It's made Daryl crack up again.
Please, whoever came up with that, well done.
I think my favorite part of that rumor, that story, was us trying to figure it out in the elevator with a stranger who must have thought we were insane because it's like your dad. We were just making noises. I had no idea what we were talking about.
What happens in Suite 912?
And then we both figured it out though. So then we both like broke out into laughter again in the middle. He must think we're lunatics, and I'm okay with that.
Well, we're lunatics with a sponsor.
Yep.
On today's show.
I don't know what I've just agreed to, but I'll take it.
Today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek makes buying tickets online for sports and concerts a less confusing process than ever. They've come along, created an amazing app and website, makes it easier than ever for fans to buy and sell tickets.
As you said, it's designed to make life easier for sports and music fans. They do all the price comparison for you by searching multiple ticket sites and ensuring that you get the best possible deal.
So, I've been looking for things to do.
Yep.
I've decided to give baseball another chance.
Oh, yeah?
And here's the reason why. I assumed New York Yankees games at Yankee Stadium would be sold out. SeatGeek...
You would be wrong.
Oh, is that right?
Well, they're either sold out because they're bad, or they're not sold out because they're bad, or they're not sold out because the tickets are like $8 billion to sit in the nice seats.
Okay, well, I found one for $12.
Well, there we go.
On SeatGeek. And that was low enough for me to want to give the New York Yankees... not the New York Yankees, baseball... another chance.
Dale, I don't want to bum you out here. You know that you don't live in New York, right?
Well, I go there sometimes.
Okay.
I go there at least twice a year.
Okay.
So I went to see the Red Sox. This would be maybe 3 years ago now, to really give baseball a chance.
Right.
Loved the stadium, beautiful stadium. Couldn't get into the game.
Oh, boy.
Got all excited for Ortiz when he came up to bat. I don't think he hit anything all night. And now he's retired, right? So I'll never see him hit anything
There you go.
live. So maybe I thought Red Sox didn't work for me. Let's give the Yankees a go. So I found Yankees tickets on SeatGeek, and I want to say 50% interested in going.
I feel like you might have just alienated Red Sox fans and Yankees fans, and maybe all baseball fans. I'm not sure.
I want to like baseball. I just can't quite get it. I don't get the appeal.
All right, well, you're giving baseball a chance. I'll give Monster Jam a chance. I haven't seen Monster Jam since I was like 10 years old. That's right, the giant monster trucks crushing things. I don't know if Truckosaurus is still a thing. I wish it were. But yeah, I'm down to see Gravedigger.
So you found Monster Jam tickets on SeatGeek?
Oh, yes, I did. In the Richmond Coliseum. Let's make it happen.
All right.
Yep.
So would I be into that?
I don't know. I don't even know if I'd be into that. I was just looking for stuff that was in Richmond, and I got tired of looking at like the couple venues that we have here for music, so I looked elsewhere, and I found Monster Jam.
So what would you do? You would go for the whole night and watch trucks crush things? Is that what they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesomely.
There's got to be someone listening to TSS who is a Monster Jam fan.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm also just trying to keep it as diverse as possible. So I think I've talked about country stars, I've talked about bluegrass music, hip hop, rock. Now I'm going monster trucks.
Your interests are diverse.
They are indeed.
All right, so as we widen our interests, if anyone else wants to do the same, you can get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Here's what you do. You download the SeatGeek app. You go to the settings tab and you click add a promo code. You enter the promo code TSS, and then SeatGeek will send you a $20 rebate after you make your first ticket purchase.
There we are. So download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code TSS today. Final segment on the show, Mr. Grove.
It's the TSS Scout Network.
It sure is. We've got 3 reports and then an additional one that came through just as we started recording. So why don't you take us to the first one, Daryl?
So we've put them up on the big screen.
We have indeed.
First scouting report today is from Axel Romain, scouting Nathaniel Chalobah. I see why you've given me this.
You see why I jumped in there real quick?
Chalobah is a 22-year-old midfielder for Chelsea. Axel tells us that Nathaniel is still struggling to break through and become a first-team regular for the Premier League leaders. He's primarily been used as a late-game sub. His 10 appearances have amounted to only 71 minutes so far this season.
Not ideal.
But things are looking up. Chalobah got his first start for the Blues in the FA Cup match against Peterborough United this past weekend, and Axel says, if there were an all-hair team, best hair in the Premier League, Nathaniel would receive my vote.
Important things. The important things that we learn from the TSS Scouting Network.
It's a key part of being a Premier League footballer.
Indeed. Up next is Andrew Eggleton scouting Ryan Gauld, the 21-year-old Scottish attacking midfielder for Sporting.
Okay.
News about Gauld is either, says Andrew, news about Gauld is either from Scottish or Portuguese sources. The Scottish sources are skewed negatively because the Scottish press didn't like Gauld leaving Dundee for Sporting and rip him every chance they get.
Interesting.
The Portuguese press is more balanced, but as Andrew says, it's in Portuguese. Anyway, Gauld was sent on loan to Setúbal, where he had established himself in the first team and helped to eliminate Sporting, his parent team, from the League Cup. The bad news would be that Sporting seems to have gotten upset about that win/loss and got revenge by recalling Gauld and fellow loanee Heraldes. Both have now been sent to Sporting B, which obviously isn't quite the same standard as the Portuguese Premier League.
So maybe Ryan Gauld should be less good when playing against his parent team.
Evidently, that's the lesson we've learned.
We also have a scouting report from John Adams, scouting Shaun Harrison, the 19-year-old forward for Spurs. John says Shaun didn't make the roster for Spurs' FA Cup match against Villa, but he did score in their 2-2 draw with Chelsea in the Premier League 2. He put in a nice header to net his 8th goal of the PL2 campaign.
Well done, Shaun.
But I don't know, if you're not making the FA Cup squad,
it's not great.
It's not great.
It's not great. But
CCV made it. CCV made it.
He did indeed. Let's talk about happier things.
Okay.
Which is that U.S. Soccer has confirmed today that Kekuta Manneh has his U.S. citizenship.
Hey.
Yeah, and I think maybe I was the one who was talking about this when we were talking about Manneh in that roster show that we did about how he wouldn't be eligible until next December.
Yeah.
It seems like
not because of citizenship, but because of residency.
Yeah, I think I was wrong, is what it turns out. I think he's been a resident of the United States. He's been here since, I believe, around 2010.
Yeah.
So it seems like the residency wasn't the issue. It was that he had, I guess, played for the Gambia's youth national team at youth 13, 14 levels.
Yeah, so there are conflicting reports out there. The truth is no one is entirely sure, right? There's a report that he was called up to the Gambian youth team, U20 teams, in 2011 and 2015 for the World Cups. Right. But he did not go either time. He did not play. But according to the Vancouver Whitecaps, their official website, he has played for the youth 13 and 14 Gambia national teams, which is a level of national team play.
Right.
So what the US soccer thing said was that he needs a waiver, and it may come before the end of the month.
A waiver from FIFA.
Yeah, FIFA waiver for him to make a switch to be a US national team player, which means he may be able to play in those friendlies against Serbia and Jamaica.
Right, which then means, less likely that he'd be in those March qualifiers, but maybe he makes the Gold Cup squad if that waiver does come through.
Right.
Very exciting.
It is, yeah, because Kekuta Manneh got speed.
He's got speed, but it's also, again, it's one of those guys who's proven that they want to be there. He's lived in a difficult spot, as we've talked about many times.
Thank you to Alistair Cupp, who sent us a photo of Point Roberts, where Kekuta Manneh lives. To recap, it is Point Roberts is attached to the Canadian landmass, but is below the, I'm not sure what that parallel's called, is below the line and therefore technically part of the United States that just sort of juts out there in the Pacific Ocean.
It sure does. It sure does. And that means Manneh can live there, but then commute to Vancouver, which he does pretty regularly.
And then return to his very small town to be a US resident. So if anyone deserves a game for the US national team, it is Kekuta Manneh.
Sure. I like that idea.
As he stares at the ocean longingly for 5 years.
Or the Sound or the Bay. I'm not sure if that's the ocean or not.
Oh, you're right. It probably is. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear about that too.
All right.
There we are.
I'm not an expert in maritime law.
Just bird law?
Yeah. Although this podcast will be released at 7 bells. If you would like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, you can do so at totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. Support the show, help us keep making shows, help us keep going.
You should do that. You should not order the Skip Scramble. That's right. I get your references.
Thank you to everybody in the TSS Scout Network. If you'd like to join, if you go to totalsoccershow.com/subscribe, we will assign you a young player to keep an eye on. And we can't guarantee they'll live in geographically odd places, but we can guarantee they have a future in soccer.
Beautiful, beautiful. Anything else, Mr. Grove?
No, that is all from me, except to say that later this week, I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be on the way to St. Petersburg. But we will have shows coming out where we interview Ted Knutson, analytics expert, and Julie Stewart-Vinks, formerly of Fox, soon to be of ESPN.
Well, way to check yourself. Nicely done.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again tomorrow.